It looks like
Okay. I did not do something. I thought I pressed a button that was incorrect, and then we were going to have to start over again.
Fancy. I got an on air. Bam, right at the top.
Oh, did you?
I'm a big
Never
radio
on
host or something. Yeah. Well,
Hello, people. Yes, we're talking on the internet. We're here about a minute early. So we'll get started here in a second. We just wanted to make sure that things were good as Peggy tries a new system, which sometimes does not work out well for her, but we seem to be okay right now.
you've nailed it this time.
looks like it.
Great. Looks great.
Okay. So I am going to leave you two to it, and I will see you whenever it makes sense for me to come back in 30 minutes or more. There is no end time to this, so if we go over, we go over, if that works for your schedules, okay? So have fun.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon or evening, depending on where you're joining us from on LinkedIn or YouTube, wherever you're watching this. My name is Beth Barodian. I am the founder and CEO of the Femina Collective, and I am joined today by my older brother and oldest sibling, Tim Barodi, as we are going to chat all things women and wealth, leading into our PDAC event on March 1st for Women in Investing. So this is a program that is really near and dear to our hearts. If you've been following Femina over the last year and a half, you know that we have been shouting from the rooftops about women understanding their money habits, understanding their financial foundations, and really understanding what it means to be investors at large, and then looking at the mining industry in particular. So before we dive into it, I will hand it over to Tim to give a little introduction of himself and of Advice First Wealth, and tell us a little bit about why you guys cared about this event, and as we've been talking, why women and wealth kind of matter to you and those you work with.
Yeah, so I mean, thanks for throwing the word older in there twice in the introduction. But yeah, my name is Tim Barodi. I am a CFP and a CPA. I've been working as a wealth advisor and financial planner for, I mean, between that and some accounting work, coming up on 15 years. And kind of one of the biggest challenges maybe that we've come across, and especially recently, is that idea of kind of financial wellness and financial literacy. And it's a topic that's been really close to my heart in the last year or so that I've been really trying to focus on. And again, as you and I have been having conversations about your initiatives, and again, kind of working alongside with you and with some of those thoughts and ideas, yeah, it felt like a really good natural fit to actually officially partner together to encourage better financial wellness, better financial literacy, more financial education. And again, especially when it comes to women and investing, we work with a lot of clients that we've seen kind of the whole spectrum of kind of some outcomes and some levels of, again, that literacy and knowledge. And yeah, it's one of those things that I think is really important and that I really want to encourage everybody to engage with.
I think one of the things that we have seen with women, particularly over this last year, I mean, I started really getting into this, wanting to know more about investment habits for women, both from myself, but also because this whole conversation around wealth really started a few years ago when I was helping a female CEO in the mining space raise money for her junior company. And we just kept talking to men, and it kept kind of being the same demographic over and over again. And there was one meeting when we finished it, we kind of just looked at each other and said, where are all the women? And during that time, I also had this full realization that because I was working in mining, because of the role that I held, because of the income that I was bringing in, I qualified as an accredited investor. And I had no idea what that term was. I had been receiving kind of options and shares and all of these sorts of things from my company as part of my compensation package, which is very typical in mining and other industries as well. But I had no idea that after they vested, I could really do anything else with them. I just take the cash. I mean, you know that. I'd be like, hey, these are vested.
I know well.
I don't know what to do with them. And so we'd take the cash, and then you kind of help me figure out what to do with them. But I thought, if I didn't know that being in my mid 30s at that time, and I knew plenty of other women in the industry who were making the same or more money than me, then I was like, they don't know about this either. And we are missing out on a huge opportunity to really understand and own our own finances. And so at Femina, we really went down the rabbit hole of looking at how do women invest? How do we look at wealth? And I think, it's very obvious when you start asking those questions that the system just wasn't made for us. And you look at when women were allowed to even access credit independently, like in North America, it wasn't until the 80s that women could actually, get a mortgage on their own or credit cards on their own or things like that. And so I often say that now being 38, I'm the first generation of woman in Canada who has been able to independently have my own wealth, credit, finances, whatever that may be. And I got off to a pretty rocky start. Like I went into some pretty serious debt in my 20s, still had really bad money habits going into my 30s. And it really hasn't been until the last few years of really getting serious about building my own wealth and what that meant for me and how mining plays a role in that we started talking to other women about it as well and saying, hey, you need to know about this, because I think along with the systemic barriers that we've seen, I think we still see a lot of women who go through a divorce or go through a job loss or go through life events or loss of a partner, whatever it may be, that partner may have been the one to kind of manage the accounts and manage all of what they have. And all of a sudden they're now kind of in a tailspin trying to figure out, how do I do this myself and what do I need to know? And I think that's where services like what you offer and financial management and wealth management becomes so important for women to find someone that they're comfortable with and to work with, because you can't predict life. You can't predict what's going to happen next. And really making sure that we as women feel confident in the decisions we are making and not just allowing others to make decisions for us with our money is really important. And I think what I have found with you, especially as we've gone through, you've been working with Jeremy and I, for years and years and years at this point. You've been with us before we started making big money, while we were making kind of the most money we were making, and now when we're kind of comfortable and we're happy with where we are at. And I think the approach that Advice First Wealth takes is a really strong one, because it lets us feel like we are really in charge of that. And so I don't know if you want to share more about what that process is or kind of your methodology around wealth management.
Yeah, there's a couple things you touched on there that are, I think, really important, and maybe people don't realize how important it is. And again, when I say kind of financial literacy or financial well-being, like that doesn't mean you need to be an expert, right? But it means having the confidence, the clarity to make a good decision based on whatever it is that you're kind of working with, right? So the idea of even wealth is going to be different based on who you are, where you are in life. But having that confidence and that clarity can help you make better decisions, and can just, it can help your mental well-being, it can help your family well-being. And that's why I think it's so important for everybody to be involved in the decision-making and understanding what's going on. Again, you touched on it. For years and years, the traditional kind of relationship, especially between financial advisor and a couple, was usually between the husband as the perceived decision maker. But even in my experience in the last 15 years, it's really the woman in the relationship makes most of the decisions, right?
Right.
And I will find out after the fact that it was, this decision is actually coming from the other side of the relationship. And again, for myself, it's been a real focus to, again, try to educate and again, bring everybody together as part of the conversation so that everybody's on the same page and everybody, again, is taking some responsibility for the decisions that are being made. And so, yeah, our approach is very, I like to say it's very different than what you typically get. And again, I think you kind of touched on that and pointed on that. It's like, it's really to put you in the middle of the conversation, right? What is it that you're trying to do? What is it you're trying to achieve? And then again, then we can build out the conversations and then the plan from there. Again, we build comprehensive in-depth financial plans based on what it is you're trying to achieve, what transitions you're going through in life. Again, you mentioned probably 4 different paths that we have followed over the years in our time working together, which has each resulted in a change to the plan, accounts, investments, whatever it is, life insurance, the whole gambit. But again, it comes down to where you're at. And then again, understanding, okay, well, if I do this, what's the implication? If I do this, what's the implication? And then again, building out that education so that we can make, again, wise decisions that are going to lead you in a direction you want to go.
Mm-hmm. I mean, first, I would like to say that I'm going to take credit for you wanting to focus on bringing more women into the conversation as well, because I think I've probably influenced that quite heavily over the last little bit.
I'll give you that.
Perfect. But I also think one of the things when I look at, again, women and investing, from my own perspective and from my own experience, it's been able to have that ability to adapt the plan. When we look at our risk tolerance over the years, sometimes we're willing to take more risk. Sometimes we've needed to pull back on risk.
Mm-hmm.
We look at different accounts that we have and why we have them. And I think a conversation that Jeremy and I have, and those following Jeremy's my husband, that we had over the summer was really looking and understanding that right now, where we both are in our careers, where we are age-wise, we kind of have the most runway to kind of be at our highest risk level right now for us. We have, we're in kind of our prime money-making age. We have a decent chunk of time before retirement. We were both experienced. We both kind of are in this really prime spot. And so over the last year and a bit, we really looked at what is cash that we could take, that we could have a bit more fun with. And so, Tim, you manage our managed accounts. So you have our longer term kind of retirement accounts, TFSAs, our education accounts for the kids, those types of things that have their own risk profile that changed over the years. But then Jeremy and I also have, and when I say Jeremy and I'm mostly me, and then just I update him on what's happening. We have the ability to have more fun with a chunk of cash that really is an area that I have really chosen to look at the commodities and metals market and play around with through stocks and ETFs and things like that. And I think that really is because we really understand our risk, and it really aligned again with those goals that we have and the plans that we put in place. And that really was really important when we were thinking about putting our event together on March 1st. The first thing that we thought about was who can we bring in that talks about those foundations. It's not just about throwing money in every different direction. It's really about understanding who you are as a person, what your money habits are, what your relationship with money is, and what your risk tolerance is, all of those sorts of things. And so it really made sense to bring Advice First Wealth into that conversation, to really give women the opportunity to ask questions, to really understand what does it mean when we say financial planning and wealth management. And then what's really unique about our time on the first is that we then also kind of bridge in why people should be looking at mining right now. Mining isn't going away. Mining is only increasing over the next little bit, and not just increasing, like we need materials desperately from the demand that we have. And Canada is a really core piece of that from a critical minerals perspective. And so we also have Alicia Milne from Q2 Metals, who will be joining us on March 1st, and she'll be talking all about Q2's lithium project, as well as mining at large, being a CEO in the mining space, what it means for her, for retail investors, which are individual investors, what that means for a company like Q2. And then I'm kind of in the middle, bridging both of it and just being there and doing my thing in between. But we purposely made it so that March 1st was for 30 individuals, 30 women to come and really have that intimate conversation. Because I think the thing that we often feel is when we are looking at people talking about investing, we're looking at people talking about wealth, we often think everyone is way ahead of us and that everyone has figured it out and we're kind of lost somewhere in the background, or maybe we have debt that we're kind of ashamed of, or maybe we like don't have the relationship with money that we hope to have. And that is all actually incredibly normal, and normalizing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, normalizing that people just are in different positions and have different opportunities, and that not everybody
has got it all figured out,
thriving and wealthy and throwing money like left, right, and center. Like that's simply not the case. And we wanted to make sure that we offered an intimate setting for women to really come and ask those questions, because I think it's really easy to get swept into they've all got it figured out and I'm the one that's left behind, when that's just simply not the case. And you would certainly know that more than me, being kind of in this industry very heavily.
Yeah, and again, like it's that idea of people are always or can be afraid to ask questions sometimes because again, you mentioned it like, oh, I should know the answer to this, or oh, I know someone has told me about this or mentioned this, and so I feel like I shouldn't have to ask over and over. But again, our industry is very complicated and it's changing all the time, and so it's important to ask those questions. And with the advent of a lot of the DIY platforms and that, it's kind of, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, but based on conversations that I have with people every week, it's kind of driven in this idea that you should be able to do it yourself. Like, you don't need to ask for advice. You don't need to ask questions. You can do it yourself and do better. But it's complicated, right? And there's, again, especially when you get into different industries or different career paths, you can have, as you mentioned, you can have stock options, you can have warrants, you can have different compensation structures. And so having someone you can ask those questions to, understanding what your options are, it all comes back to that idea of financial well-being. And that enhances, again, your mental well-being, your stress levels, everything. Money is like the number one stressor for most people in their lives. And so being able to kind of get the answers that you need, get advice that you need, and again, have a plan in place of where you're kind of heading. Really, the idea is just to provide you with a better mental and better lifestyle well-being on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that happened last year was one of the private placements that I participated in was a flow through deal. And it was something that I came to you and talked about and said, I have this opportunity, it's flow through. Being that flow through is so unique to Canada and so unique to mining, I knew enough about it, but it was still like, I need more information about like, how does this benefit me? How does this benefit the company? Like, what are the tax implications? All of those sorts of things.
The flip side as well, what are the risks?
What are the risks of that? Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm lucky because you're my brother, so you don't get the option to ignore me or to like not answer my incessant questions that I send you all the time. But it really is that piece of like, I want to do this. And it's not coming to you to say, can I do it or can't I? It's really coming and saying, how do I make this happen? And then what's the whole picture of how this fits in? And again, I think it really, we feel like we either just need to give it all over to someone and let someone else manage it. The amount of women that I talk to that say, oh, I'm just with X institution or X whatever, and they just send me a quarterly report. I don't even know what I'm investing in. I'm like, oh my gosh, at least ask questions, like at least know what you're investing in and make sure that it's like doing what you want. And we again had that example when I moved my RSP over to Advice First. We had a whole like huge conversation about like, what do I want it invested in? What are the different what are the different scenarios for me? How do I want this from a risk perspective? Do I want it to just kind of grow? Do I want it to be more aggressive, which is ultimately what I chose? Is like, again, I've got so much time for this thing to ebb and flow and go up and down and do whatever, that I'd rather put it in that high risk piece. And then maybe in 10 years, we evaluate that again, or we look at that and say, is that still the right fit for us? But I think it really is so important for women to just be able to talk about money and talk about what they're good at, what they're not good at, the questions they have, what makes sense for them, what doesn't make sense to them. I think women, particularly in high earning industries or just high earners, there's a lot of even questions around tax. Like, how do our accounts impact us with tax? And how do we, when we're going into tax return season, like, what do I need to be aware of? Or how do I need to do that? And again, I've been caught off guard by that numerous times where it's like, oh no, I didn't think about this, or I didn't, do these sorts of things. And then I come to you and we kind of figure it out and figure out what next steps need to be. But I just want every woman to be able to experience that and be able to work with someone, or at least ask questions and get started on their own financial journey, which really is what March 1st is about. Like, we saw this last year. We did our 8-week virtual course of women in investing, and we had some great success with that. Great questions, great conversations, but 8 weeks is a long time for people to commit to kind of come into every week and, stay involved. And so we thought, if we can do this over 4 hours, and then we have a VIP opportunity for people to come and do dinner directly with us and Alicia, and really get into the kind of nitty gritties of those conversations. We thought then we got to try it. And PDAC is obviously the perfect place for that as the world ascends on Toronto for that week for the conference. And so I'm just really glad that you all said yes and said that you wanted to be involved with this, because I do think that women are really eager to learn about this. They're really wanting to catch up. We really want to play at all tables. We really want to know what our opportunities and options are. And we don't really have a lot of places to go and find that information where it doesn't feel really convoluted or confusing and just like, someone else do this for me type thing.
For sure. And again, that's exactly why we were so excited to kind of partner with Femina and again, be part of this event, because as I mentioned earlier, this is a topic that has really struck a chord with me. And again, trying to kind of demystify some of these things that are out there. And again, it's a complicated industry, but it doesn't have to be, right? You can still make good decisions. You can still understand what your options are without being an expert. And again, having to devote too much time. Again, I know you don't have enough time to learn every little bit about, which is why you and I talk.
Yeah.
Right. So it's okay. Well, what is a flow through share? What is a warrant? If I'm offered this, like, what does that mean? Right. And so that's the types of conversations that we can have. And as we work with people, and how does it fit into my financial plan and my picture and the rest of my portfolio? What's the appropriate asset allocation? You kind of touched on that, but even farther than that, from like a risk category is, well, hey, I'm part of the mining industry. I want to be involved. One of the things a lot of people don't realize from that respect is if you work in mining or whatever industry you're in and you're being given stock options, shares, whatever, you tend to be then very concentrated and like your portfolio can be very overweight that specific one company, that industry, whatever. So again, how do we take the rest of your portfolio to complement that account there? But again, understanding just those concepts so that you even know to kind of have those conversations. And so, yeah, that's why we're so excited to be part of the event in March, and really looking forward to, again, kind of walking through in a bit more detail, like some of the process, the planning aspects. Again, you touched on the taxation, like one of the biggest or the biggest eroder of people's wealth over their lifetime is tax. And so that's a conversation I had with a client this morning was, okay, how are we managing taxes for the rest of your life? And what are we doing to kind of take advantage of that? Again, there's different vehicles that are available to people that a lot of people don't realize that can, again, help offset some of those taxes or, again, make things more tax efficient. And so, yeah, really looking forward to having a more in-depth conversation and, again, just why it's so important.
Between the two of us, we probably would never be able to count the number of messages you would get when I would be like so angry about my taxes on my paycheck, so mad about the level of tax. I get it. And I'm generally like a fairly socialist person who's like, I get taxes. I believe in taxes. I want my taxes to be there. But it hits when, again, in those high earning positions, when more than half of your paycheck is taken on taxes and then compensating for that. So again, these are the conversations we want to have. I think with the mining piece specifically, we know we draw in a lot of women who are interested in the industry or who are directly in the industry. Mm-hmm. And as I've gone through my own journey, and we've done it through Femina, it's so amazing because we are the women who work in this industry. We're watching the trends. We're like watching the M&A activity happening. We know what's coming down from regulatory aspects, things like that, but yet we haven't seen ourselves as how do we actually engage outside of just being an employee in the industry. Right. And that's what I think is so interesting about what we're offering and what we're doing, as well as them bringing women who don't know about the mining industry, giving them some education around here's what the industry is in Canada. Here's why it's so important to our economy. Here's where it happens. I mean, everywhere is the answer to that question. But it's just, it provides a lot more information, because if we don't have all of that information, all of that education, then we're not making the best decisions we can, because our information is limited. So exactly. I think that's a great place to wrap up. I just wanted to come on and chat with you today and just really give a plug for March 1st for people who have been wondering what it's going to be about. It is March 1st downtown Toronto from 1 until 4 p.m. and then with a dinner following afterwards. All the information is on the Femina website for being able to purchase tickets. And I'm really looking forward to it. And I'm glad that we can do this together and bring Alicia in as well. And it should be a great day together.
I agree. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to picking Alicia's brain as well on some of the mining specific factors. But yeah, really looking forward to it and having some great conversations in March.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tim, for joining. And if anyone has questions, feel free to leave a comment and we will see you all on March 1st.